Hello, and welcome to Joomla Development 101. We're going to be continuing our lecture series on Joomla module creation. In this lecture, we're going to be looking at the helper file that can be distributed with your Joomla module. It's important to remember that the helper file is not a required file, but one that we're adding simply for convenience. If we look at a helper file, there are a couple of things to make note of. First, the helper file does not need to extend any class. It can be a simple standalone PHP class, and you can instantiate it or call static functions from your module. Secondly, unlike with the plugin, in the Joomla module helper, the functions can be named anything, there are no naming requirements, and they can be instantiated or called any way that you desire. As we have worked through the Smart Welcome module that we are creating, we have decided to use a helper file. Let's begin writing that helper file now. The first thing I'm going to do is open my IDE and navigate to the helper.php file. We created this file in a previous lecture, but it remains empty at this point. In this file, the first part needs to always be the standard header block. This header block consists of a package, in this case Joomla site, a subpackage, module, and mod smart welcome, followed by a copyright and license. It's important to remember that if you plan to distribute your module through the Joomla extension directory, both the copyright and the license are necessary fields, so it's good to always remember to include a standard header block in every one of your PHP files. Line 10 is a standard Joomla line as well, where we define jexec or die. If you'll remember back to a previous lecture, this line simply ensures that we're running this file within the Joomla CMS and prevents security hacks. What we should do next is open back up the mod_smartwelcome.php file which we wrote in the last lecture. Here we can refresh our memory as to the class name and the function name that we're going to need in our helper file. We've created mod smart welcome helper and a function show. So over in my helper file, I need to define my class as mod smart welcome helper, and I need to create a public static function show, which accepts a single object parameter called params. At this point, it's good to go back and create a doc block to define on this helper class. I'm going to add a few of the fields that are listed in the header, but we're going to list them again here for convenience. Again, I'll list the site for the package type, create a subpackage for module and mod smart welcome, and lastly I'll put a since tag for when we created this. In my public static function show, we need to determine what exactly we're going to be doing with this function. Looking back at mod_smartwelcome.php, I see that I call show and return a single variable to the variable show. Then, on line 17, I check to see if show exists. This gives me a hint that obviously my show variable should be a true or false Boolean result. So now we can look in here and we can decide, okay, we need to return true if we want to show the welcome message, or false if we do not. Now, to show or hide the welcome message, we need to determine whether the visitor is new or a repeat visitor. The best way to do that is with cookies. So what we're going to need to do is instantiate our app, and then what we want to do is we want to make sure that this cookie that we're going to either check or set is unique to this website. Because if this module gets distributed to multiple websites, then a visitor to your site may get the same cookie set that might be on another website, unless we define a unique cookie name which will be special to this website. One quick easy way to do that is to use the secret word, which can be found in the configuration file. If you refresh your memory by reviewing that file, you will notice that the secret is a random string that's unique to each installation. Lastly, we'll check to see if that cookie exists. I'm going to use app input cookie get, and here we're going to actually define the name of our cookie. I'm going to prepend JSW underscore for Joomla Smart Welcome underscore, and then the secret, which comes from the config. So now I have instantiated the application, I've gotten the secret word from the configuration, and I've retrieved the cookie, if it exists, that's unique to this installation. Next, I need to check to see if we don't have a cookie. So if that call, app input cookie get, returns null, meaning the cookie does not exist, then the visitor is new and I need to set the cookie now. I'm going to set the cookie and make sure that we name it the exact same as we have above. And then I'm going to define that set to a 1 and return true because we would want to show them the message. Else, if the cookie exists and it's less than the params value for what our visit count should be, then I'm going to want to do something slightly different. I'm going to do app input cookie set, but for my value, what I want to do is take my current cookie value and add 1 and also return true. The last option is going to be the default, which will be to return false. So let's review real quickly what we have here. If the cookie doesn't exist, that means the visitor is their first time to the website. We want to then set the cookie with a default value of 1 and return true to show the message. Else, if the cookie exists, but the number of visits is less than our visit count, and our default would be 5 if the visit count is not set, then we want to increase the value of the cookie by 1 and return true to show the message again. Else, that would mean that the cookie exists and it's greater than the visit count, we want to return false or do not show the message. Saving that, and we are done with the welcome helper. Now, we could add more functions in here, and perhaps we will return to this later and look at adding in some additional functionality, but for right now, the basics of the helper file is one function called show. That concludes the helper file for the module creation. In our next lecture, we will begin the process of looking at the views section. Once we have the views written, we should have enough of the module in place to be able to zip it up and install it on our Joomla website and begin to look at the functionality.